Item 10C, adopt a resolution establishing a city council policy for consultation with city advisory bodies prior to city council appropriation of restricted city funds and reallocating the prior appropriation of $50,000 from the City Art Fund to the General Fund Capital Reserve for the 324 Florida Avenue Park project. Tammy?
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, there's two actions recommended in the resolution before you this evening. One is to reallocate prior appropriation of $50,000 from the City Art Fund to the General Fund Capital Reserve for the 324 Florida Avenue Park project, and to establish a City Council policy for consultation with city advisory bodies prior to City Council appropriation of restricted city funds. So the 324 Florida Avenue property was owned by a master woodworker who created a 3,000-pound wood carving titled Independence of Switzerland. The carving was displayed in 1939's World Fair and in other prominent locations. Since that time, the carving has been vandalized and exposed to the elements and has deteriorated since then. The city is now proceeding with the plans to develop a park on the property and has recently completed the park master plan to design and develop park improvements on the property. On August 23, 2016, the City Council authorized an agreement with ARG Conservation Services to remove and treat the wood carving so that it could be reserved until the City Council determines how it should be handled moving forward. That action included appropriation of $50,000 from the City Art Fund for the work. Unfortunately, staff did not present the information on the City Art Fund expenditures to the Culture and Arts Commission prior to presenting the information to the City Council for approval. At the last City Council meeting on September 13, 2016, the City Council requested that staff return with the agenda items to substitute the funding source for the work with ARG from the City Art Funds with funds from the General Fund Capital Reserve. The resolution authorizes reallocation of the City Art Funds previously appropriated for the 324 Florida Art Avenue Park project to the General Fund Capital Reserve Fund to cover the cost of the planned work associated with the wood carving. Additionally, the City Council requested that staff develop a policy requiring prior consultation with city advisory boards before appropriating funds for delivery of projects and activities under the advisory body's scope of responsibility. So there are two advisory bodies that have assigned responsibilities related to expenditure of city funds, and that's the Parks and Recreation Committee and the Culture and Arts Commission. Included in the resolution is a policy statement expressing the City Council's interest where a citizen advisory body has responsibilities associated with projects or programs where there's a dedicated funding source. City staff will consult with that advisory body prior to its consideration to appropriate funds from those restricted funds. Once approved by the City Council, the policy statement will be circulated to each of the advisory bodies for their information. So if the City Council prefers, staff has two separate resolutions for two separate actions on these items. And that concludes my presentation. Staff and I are available for any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff, or do you want to do this in two separate resolutions? I think it makes sense to do that, actually. Okay.
Through the chair, I do appreciate staff's report and council bringing this back up. I think I went to the Culture and Arts Commission as the liaison to the last meeting when this topic was discussed, so Ms. Burns brought them up to speed on what was happening. And I still have my reluctance on how I voted because, in essence, there really isn't a plan and it's going to go into storage. And I do know of its art. But after talking to them, I do understand that reversing the monies and not having them come out of the Culture and Arts is the right thing to do. I don't know that they would have known what to do or really wanted to embrace that project. So that's important. And as far as us going forward, having a guideline and policy, as my colleague Irene had said, staff retires, council retires, and so at least there'll be something stipulated for the future. And these are, the Culture and Arts Commission, I can speak for them, know that this is not their money, and it's not our money, and they give advice and guidance. They don't have the ultimate say about the funds being expended, but they do understand that. So I'm happy to see that we're going to have a policy in place and that this isn't repeated, and I do appreciate the Assistant City Manager's staff report.
Okay. Anyone else? We have two resolutions to consider here. The first one is to establish a city council policy for consultation with city advisory bodies prior to city council appropriation of restricted city funds. Would someone like to introduce that?
I'll go ahead and introduce that resolution for adoption.
Councilmember Rico Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Marty Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Second resolution is reallocating the prior appropriation of $50,000 from the City Art Fund to the General Fund Capital Reserve for the 324 Florida Avenue Park project.
Through the chair, before
Irene?
I introduce this, first of all, I appreciate what Mr. Rico Medina has said. And I just want to kind of clarify. Years ago, I was the council person who initiated, with Mayor Ruane, initiated having a Culture and Arts Commission. And I felt it wasn't, and the council agreed with me at the time, felt it was important to foster public art. And one of the things that public art does is cause controversy. And it causes discussion, and it causes things that people don't generally associate with art. They think, it's a pretty picture, and that's what it should be. But that's not what public art is only. So I realize there's some controversy about us purchasing or saving this piece of artwork. That's fine, and I think it's kind of exciting, and people are going to be talking about it, which is part of what public art is. And I'm excited that San Bruno is going to at least save this piece, and what happens with it next, we'll find out. I know that we are looking for we haven't decided anything, but we would be searching for a proper and appropriate place to place it or to donate it to. So I just wanted to say those things. I appreciate the support of the council, and I would like to introduce this resolution.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Rico Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Marty Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.